Guys, it's Quana back again with another review. Welcome back to Her Real Review, where I'm going to give you all of my thoughts, opinions, and tea about Malcolm and Marie, a new Netflix original film directed and written by Sam Levinson, starring Zendaya and John David Washington. Before we get started, do me a favor and click the subscribe button to get more content, more of your favorite reviews, including This Is Us, and soon to be starting WandaVision, which I have reviewed several times and are in my drafts, but insecurity. And so those will be coming soon. And hopefully you will like this video and come back for more content. But let's talk about Malcolm and Marie for just a moment. So if you're like me, you probably saw the trailer as well as the photo stills for Malcolm and Marie. People have been buzzing about it for a while. It was supposed to be this close personal look at the inner workings of this couple's relationship. They are the only two in the film, and it kind of is very much a reflection of the old Hollywood style. You think of like some of my favorite movies from the 40s and 50s, David and Marie, not David and Marie. Her name is Marie. David and Lisa kind of put you in the mind of guess who's coming to dinner, like in those kinds of style where it's black and white. It's a very intense look at the relationship between two people and some of the conflicts that come out of that. So if you are familiar with Sam Levinson, he is the director and writer for Euphoria, which is also starring Zendaya. So they've had a close working relationship for a while now. And of course, John David Washington, he is the star of Tenet, Black Klansman, and of course, you know, most notably, even though I'm pretty sure he's ready for people to stop talking about it, but he is the son of Denzel Washington. Fun fact, his first film credit, I believe, is in Malcolm X. So let me go ahead and give you guys my review for this. I'm going to try to keep the spoilers to as much of a minimum as I can, but there will be some spoilers for the movie. So if you are completely not wanting to hear spoilers, here's what I will say. I will say that no review should ever turn you away from watching a movie. So there's that. So if you want to see the movie, go watch the movie. However, in terms of this particular movie, it should have come with a trigger warning. And so if you have not seen the movie yet and you're not sure if you should watch the movie, just be aware that this movie should have a trigger warning. And if you are someone who is struggling through this pandemic, this might not be the movie for you to watch right now. Now, I've not experienced any of the things that these characters have experienced in their lives, and I was deeply disturbed by what I was seeing. I felt nauseous at times, and I'm not exaggerating. And I don't get overly like sensitive to movies. I mean, yes, I do cry in So Magnolias, who doesn't? But I don't get overly emotional when I watch things, and except for excitement. If it's a Marvel movie, I get super geeked out. But aside from that, right, I don't get overly emotional. This had me emotional. It had me in my feelings. I was angry. I was mad. I wanted to fight the world. I wanted to vomit, like literally, like I'm not even exaggerating. So if watching a highly toxic relationship is going to trigger you, do not watch this movie. And I will say one spoiler for this movie is that there is very little growth in these characters during the course of this movie. So if you're someone who has these triggers, but when you watch most movies, you see the characters arc and they grow and they mature out of this toxicity. And that usually is like giving us, the viewing public, some recovery from that experience. If that is your experience watching films like these, don't expect that in this movie, okay? That is my warning. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about it. So this is one of those films where Sam Levinson basically proves that a filmmaker can be equal parts masterful and psychotic. And what I mean by that is the cinematography and the direction of the actors is brilliant, because how he gets them to act during this movie is very masterful in that way. That being said, the writing piece at times feels inauthentic. Even if it happened that way, it does not feel like it would happen for these characters. And the writing of this film feels a lot like a filmmaker trying to shut down criticism of his film that we're watching by giving us the scenario of the character knocking down the criticism that parallels which we're watching in this movie with his own movie, and knocking it down and explaining why it's not valid, thereby invalidating criticism of this movie. That's what it felt like I was watching. I felt like this man who said, I want to make this movie. People are going to complain about it. Let me write a monologue where I talk about why complaints for my movies are not justified, so that no one will be able to complain about my movie. That is really what it felt like you were watching. And that is only pleasing to other filmmakers, I would think. I would think that if you're wanting this to be viewed by the general viewing public, and you want this to be seen as art that the public can appreciate, you can't berate the public for having opinions about art. Like, yes, people make art, and in the words of Erykah Badu,
now keep in mind that I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit.
So we know that there's going to be some sensitivity for any artist to experience criticism of their work. But you also can't tell the audience that they can't have criticism over your work. Otherwise, paint that stuff, make that stuff, stick it in the closet, and don't let anybody see it. If you don't want any criticism, like if I didn't want anybody to critique my YouTube videos, I would never post them, because you guys do come in the comments and give me feedback, and I appreciate it because it makes me better. Like, eventually I was like, you know what, why don't I just use my cell phone? I'm going to get better audio. And so now I don't have quite the same number of audio issues I was having before. Like, criticism and critique is supposed to make you better. And so it just felt like I was watching a movie about a man telling me why we can't critique his film. That is what it feels like. But the basic premise of Malcolm and Marie is that Malcolm, played by John David Washington, is this filmmaker. He has just had the movie premiere for his new film, and he is being acclaimed, and it's supposed to be this celebratory experience. However, his girlfriend Marie, who the movie is loosely based on her own life experience, feels very unseen by him on this night that's supposed to be celebrating him, because here he has made this art that is heavily influenced by her own life, and he has forgotten to thank her for it. And so they end up in this huge hours-long argument. It felt like the movie is only like an hour and 46 minutes, but it felt like this movie went on forever, and it felt like this argument went on forever. They get home, it's like 1 o'clock, and the argument that they have is supposed to have only lasted the duration of the movie. But the way that some of the cuts are made, though, it makes it seem like moments when characters are going outside and we're watching them outside, and they're outside, and of course in movie edit it's only 45 seconds, but they're supposed to have been out there for, you know, minutes, long enough for where the other character is looking for them. And that should be longer than the duration of this movie, and yet the argument's supposed to only take about the duration of this movie. Like, they actually go to sleep before sunrise and then wake up after the sun is up, and they've been up most of the night. So that part, like the timing, that doesn't make sense. So that's the basic premise. Watching JDW debase, abuse, and basically pull a Kanye level rant against Zendaya, it's too much. And we all have moments like seeing Denzel in Training Day for the first time, right? And watching this suave, debonair gentleman of an actor go to that level. It's horrifying, but this was just so uncomfortable. And there was a lot of criticism about this movie, about Zendaya's age, because she is a fully fledged adult, but she does still play a lot of teenage roles on television. In Euphoria, she's playing a teenager. She was recently on an episode of Blackish, like maybe just a few years ago, before the character of Zoe went off to college, and she was playing a teenager. Like, she still plays teenager. She was a teenager in the OA episodes where she guest starred in. So she still plays these teenage roles because she does look so young and her frame is so small. But in this was her opportunity to play a more mature character. And while she could have been believable as a mature character juxtaposed to someone just slightly younger and less ragged looking than JDW in this film. I think she would have actually elevated to the maturity level that she was really hoping that this movie would allow her to achieve. Instead, just as her character critiques her boyfriend's movie and the character in the movie Imani, and talks about the scene where Imani is naked and how it was sexualizing her, and they make note of her own attire and this wife beater and white panties that could be sexualizing her, and she's like, well, I have clothes on. But it felt so out of place, the juxtaposition of this man who stays fully clothed the entire movie, and yet we see Zendaya in all manners and states of undress, everything but naked, and then she's wearing the most neutral, childlike, innocent of undergarments. She's wearing white briefs and a wife beater. You can obviously see her prints, okay? But even without that, like, it just makes her seem so frail and fragile, juxtaposed to how outrageous and outlandish JDW is in his performance. And it literally felt like, I was like, oh, he must have been watching Kanye West in some of his more recent rants and tirades and was channeling that. Because it felt like that's what I was watching. It felt like I was watching Kanye. Zendaya is beautiful. She is, but just like I said, watching her be berated by a man JDW's age, I had a problem more with that. Like, if they had casted someone slightly younger for his role, I actually think it would have been better, and we wouldn't have had the backlash of age. It wouldn't have been as much of an ageism issue if they had casted someone in their mid-20s, even upper 20s, to be Malcolm's character juxtaposed to Zendaya. But it's just JDW, he's my age. He's a grown man. He looks like he has a wife and 3 kids and a mortgage. And yet he's berating this girl. Now, again, the acting part where he's channeling Kanye, that's him. But the words that he's saying, that's Sam Levinson. That's the writer. The arguments that they're having, the things that he says to her, like, he literally berates her and brings up her past suicide attempt. Like, it's the toxicity for me. It's the gaslighting for me. It's the deplorable nature. And I mean, they both were throwing low blows, but there was no parallel. Like, there was no parallel to the blows that she was throwing versus his. He was hitting, when you talk about below the belt, like, he was like punching her up through her lower hemisphere up into her gut. That's how low blows he was throwing. It was basically an hour and 46 minutes of John David Washington screaming, literally at times screaming, and it made no sense. And I mean, I know that couples scream at each other and they say horrible things, but there was just never a moment of like where you felt like Marie was actually heard, because even when he apologized, it just doesn't. His self-importance, his posturing with Marie, the back and forth between, like, where she has to like coddle him at times, don't make any sense. Now, there's another criticism that Malcom brings up about the film where it talks about it not being a black film. And this is not a black film just because it has black actors. And I do think it brings up a good question, because as a member of the black community, we sometimes categorize films based on their actors and their subject matter and not based on who presents themselves on screen. I think the presentation of whether something is an ethnic representation or cultural representation of the community that it's supposed to be aligned with is the evidence or the nuances of culture. And while black people are not a monolith, you hear me say that a lot, the fact that this chick pulled out a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese, they have just gone to a movie premiere, and I don't care how poor you are, if we've just gone to a nice event where I'm dressed up wearing probably a dress that is worth like $500 or more, I don't care if we're getting home late and it's the middle of the night and we've been out drinking. Like, run my behind through a drive-thru. I'm not going home and they were at a Hollywood premiere. You mean to tell me there was not like an In-N-Out burger, a Jack in the Box, something where they could have gone through that? Like, you're gonna pull out a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese and make this man? But then let's talk about the fact that she did make this man food and said she was hungry, she had not eaten, and then never got a chance to eat because he ate up all the food. Like, again, it's the gaslighting for me. It's the ignoring your significant other for me. It's the, disregarding their needs for me. This movie was just crazy, crazy, crazy toxic. And it makes me sad because what I thought from the trailer, although we knew from the trailer there was going to be like some elements of them fighting, I thought ultimately we were going to get a beautiful love story. That is the way that it was filmed. And maybe it's a subversion of that. But being that let's talk about it, there so rarely are big budget movies that are like promoted that display two Black characters in love romantically and in a healthy way. And I think most people thought we were going to get a tinge of toxicity and then two people coming together to argue and talk out their issues and then finding some commonality and making it okay. If you were looking for #Black love, this is not the movie for you. This is not going to give you that, because this movie was not written for us. It was written about Sam Levinson, and he just happened to cast an actress that he works with and that he adores and has a good relationship with in the role. And then, I don't know what his connection with JDW is, but then said, oh, who is an up-and-coming actor that we can get? Let's get JDW. That is what basically happened. It had nothing to do with these characters. This was just the writing. There was no additional adding in of he wouldn't have said this, or she wouldn't have said this, or just there was no acknowledgement of any of that. So it was really hard to watch this movie. If you were hoping for #Black love, I recommend The Photograph starring Issa Rae and Lakeith Stanfield. There's a ton of movies that I can recommend if you're looking for #Black love, but this is not it. If you are now, Oscar buzz, I was going to say I could see Zendaya getting a nomination for this, but because the elements are there, it's the type of film that Hollywood loves. I could see her getting it because she does attempt to stand up for herself, but there's also the element of where there's just an ambiguous ending and we don't know if she follows through with that. And that's the part that just felt unfulfilled for me. I can't tell someone how to do their art, but I was hoping for more from Malcom and Marie, and I was disappointed. So there's that. So this ended up being a lot longer than what I thought it was going to be, guys, in terms of my review. But I guess I had a lot more to say. Most of it just not so good. Zendaya looked beautiful. Law Roach did the thing with the outfits. He has been her longtime stylist and stuff. But yeah, no. And I don't know. And the sad thing is I don't know that this is really going to do that much for JDW other than allow him to say that he did a movie like this. There's a lot of it has a very theatrical lean to it, watching just these two characters basically in this one set and acting out these monologues. And I usually love stuff like this. Oh my gosh, the movie with Ellen Burstyn and Alan, oh my gosh, what is his name? He used to be in MASH. But I can't think of his name right now. But same time next year, where they're playing a couple who meets and has an affair every year at the same time. It's just them in one room. Fun. There's funny moments. there were no funny moments in this movie, because what they tried to make funny moments were not funny, because you had literally just been traumatized. Like, you can't, y'all do what you want to do. You grown, you're going to do as you see fit. If you want to see the movie, but just be prepared for what you're going to get. Okay, guys? All right, so that's all I have to say about Malcolm and Marie. I'm going to give it a high C, and that is because Zendaya was beautiful and gorgeous, and because I normally love JDW. Sam, try again next time. All right, guys, so that's all I have for you today. Let me know what you thought, but down below in the comments, have you seen Malcolm and Marie yet? How do you feel? Are you okay? Do you need to seek some outside counseling? No, I'm just joking. But let's just have a little chat below in the comments. And until next time, guys, toodles.